Katherine Hicks. Leonard Nimoy's Star Trek movie Whale Biologist explained in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, directed by Leonard Nimoy. Katherine Hicks plays Dr. Jillian Taylor, a 20th-century marine biologist with expertise in humpback whales. To save 23rd century Earth from a probe demanding to speak with whales, Admiral James T. Kirk, William Shatner, Mr. Spock, Leonard Nimoy, and the crew of the USS Enterprise must take their stolen Klingon bird of prey, dubbed the HMS Bounty, back to 1986, when humpback whales were not yet extinct. In 20th century San Francisco, Dr. Jillian Taylor, the assistant director of the Cetacean Institute, is instrumental in bringing humpback whales, George and Gracie, to the future. Part audience surrogate, part potential love interest for Admiral Kirk, Katherine Hicks's Jillian Taylor is a grounding factor in Star Trek IV. Narratively, Jillian Taylor plays the straight man, so to speak, in the fish-out-of-water comedy that makes The Voyage Home one of the best Star Trek movies. Despite her initial disbelief at Kirk and Spock's story, Dr. Taylor becomes Kirk and Spock's guide to navigating the 1980s in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. Jillian helps the time-displaced Enterprise crew with basics like money and getting through 20th century San Francisco as they rush to save George and Gracie, who have been prematurely released into the wild. Katherine Hicks played whale biologist Dr. Jillian Taylor in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. Katherine Hicks plays whale biologist Dr. Jillian Taylor in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. Dr. Taylor is a consummately professional woman of science who is highly knowledgeable and dedicated to the welfare of the humpback whales in her care. It's this dedication that first alerts Dr. Taylor to the mission of the original Starship Enterprise crew, when Spock enters the whale's tank in an effort to communicate with George and Gracie. The Institute is losing funding, so Jillian is quick to help Kirk and Spock bring George and Gracie to the future. Because the 23rd century whales and their offspring need a caretaker to thrive, Dr. Taylor ultimately joins them. Katherine Hicks may be best known to Star Trek fans for her role as Dr. Jillian Taylor in 1986 Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, though in that same year, Hicks was also in Peggy Sue Got Married. Prior to Star Trek IV, Katherine Hicks played other professional women on television. Hicks played Dr. Emily Rappant in the TV version of The Bad News Bears, and Dr. Faith Coleridge in the 1970s soap opera Ryan's Hope, which also featured Star Trek Voyager's own Kate Mulgrew. Later, Katherine Hicks starred as family matriarch Annie Camden in Aaron Spelling's family dramedy Seventh Heaven, and frequently appeared in TV guest spots and made-for-TV movies. In the vast universe of Star Trek, known for its bold visions of futuristic technology, space travel, and alien encounters, one film took a curious turn by diving into the environmental concerns of 20th century Earth. That film was Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, 1986, directed by Leonard Nimoy. Amidst the action and adventure typical of the franchise, one of the most striking elements of the movie was the introduction of Katherine Hicks as Dr. Jillian Taylor, a marine biologist whose passion for whales becomes pivotal in saving the Earth's future. The character, expertly portrayed by Hicks, remains memorable for her unique blend of scientific intellect, compassion, and humor, making her stand out in a franchise primarily driven by spacefaring heroes. A brief introduction to Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home was the third sequel to Star Trek, the motion picture, and followed directly after Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. However, unlike its predecessors, The Voyage Home had a distinctly lighter tone and embraced a narrative focused on environmentalism. The film sees Admiral James T. Kirk, William Shatner, and his crew embarking on a mission to save Earth, which is under threat from a mysterious alien probe. The probe is causing global chaos, and the crew discovers that it is trying to communicate with humpback whales, a species that has been extinct for centuries. To save Earth, the crew of the USS Enterprise must travel back in time to the 20th century and bring back a pair of whales to respond to the probe's signals. This time travel plot not only serves as a platform for much of the film's humor, but also introduces the character of Dr. Jillian Taylor, played by Katherine Hicks, a 20th century whale biologist who becomes an unexpected ally to Kirk and Spock, Leonard Nimoy, in their quest. Dr. Jillian Taylor, a character grounded in environmental concerns, Dr. Jillian Taylor's role in The Voyage Home is essential in more ways than one. As a marine biologist working at the Cetacean Institute in San Francisco, She is deeply committed to studying and protecting humpback whales, particularly a pair named George and Gracie. Her genuine care for the whales is evident from the moment she is introduced, establishing her as a passionate and dedicated scientist. The film uses Taylor's character to address real-world environmental issues, particularly the endangerment of whales due to human activity. By the mid-1980s, commercial whaling had driven several species to the brink of extinction, and The Voyage Home tapped into this rising ecological consciousness. Taylor's love for the whales is a clear reflection of the growing environmental movements of the time, and through her, the film delivers a strong message about the importance of preserving nature. Her interaction with the crew of the Enterprise begins when Kirk and Spock pose as eccentric marine biologists to get close to the whales. While initially skeptical of their strange behavior, Taylor is eventually drawn into their mission when she realizes the whales are in danger. As she learns about their true purpose, saving the future, she becomes an integral part of the story, guiding Kirk and Spock through 20th century San Francisco and helping them track down the whales. A character defined by humor and humanity, one of the standout qualities of Katherine Hicks's portrayal of Dr. Jillian Taylor is the warmth and humor she brings to the role. The interactions between Taylor and Spock, in particular, provide some of the film's most memorable moments. Spock, with his Vulcan logic and emotionless demeanor, stands in stark contrast to Taylor's open, emotional nature. This clash leads to several humorous exchanges, such as when Spock mind melds with a whale or when he jumps into a whale tank, much to Taylor's astonishment. Hicks's portrayal also adds a touch of humanity to the film, grounding the more fantastical elements of time travel and space exploration in real-world emotions and concerns. Her deep connection to the whales, her confusion over the strange behavior of Kirk and his crew, and her eventual willingness to take a leap of faith to save the future all contribute to making her a relatable and likable character. Taylor's eventual decision to accompany Kirk and his crew into the 23rd century also serves as a powerful statement about her willingness to sacrifice her own life in the 20th century for the sake of the future. In the final moments of the film, she volunteers to leave behind her life on Earth to continue her work in the future, where she can contribute to saving other endangered species. Her decision reflects her dedication as a scientist and her broader environmental ethic. Katherine Hicks and her impact on the Star Trek franchise. While Dr. Jillian Taylor only appears in Star Trek IV, Katherine Hicks's performance has had a lasting impact on the franchise. Fans and critics alike praised her portrayal of the character, noting how she brought a fresh, down-to-earth perspective to a series often dominated by spacefaring adventures and alien encounters. Hicks's performance allowed viewers to connect with the film's environmental message on a deeper, more personal level. The inclusion of Dr. Taylor in the narrative also highlights Leonard Nimoy's vision for The Voyage Home as a film that transcends typical science fiction tropes. By weaving environmental concerns into the fabric of the story and introducing a character like Taylor, the film becomes not only a piece of science fiction entertainment but also a commentary on humanity's responsibility to the planet. In conclusion, Katherine Hicks's portrayal of Dr. Jillian Taylor in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, remains a memorable and significant contribution to the Star Trek universe. Through her passionate defense of humpback whales and her relatable, humorous interactions with Kirk and Spock, Hicks's character adds a human dimension to the film's broader environmental message, making it a standout entry in the franchise.